Good, let's do our practice. So finding yourself a comfortable position that you can maintain about 20 to 30 minutes sit. So we'll do a nice relaxing, settling meditation. I'll talk for a little while about ethical self-discipline as the topic tonight. And then we'll have an opportunity for some questions and discussion. So closing the eyes, if that's comfortable for you. Taking some fuller breath, deep belly breath. Extending the length of the exhalations to cue the body to relax. And see if you can drop in right away. Drop into that state of the observer, watching the body begin to settle. Allowing yourself to adjust as needed. Maybe the hands weren't quite in the right spot and you want to shift the legs, the hips. Notice where you're holding. Can you relax what can relax? So the uprightness of the body, around the skeleton, around the muscles. And beyond that, just let go. Let everything soften. You could turn up the corners of the mouth, encouraging a lightheartedness, a small smile. The breath becomes natural, the body just breathing as it needs to, as it wants to. Notice the energy and activity of the mind, the mental energy. Let the thoughts become the background, bringing the breath and the body breathing into the foreground. And just notice every time the mind picks up a thought and engages with it, we set it back down, let it go. The energy of the mind or the thoughts aren't settling, training your attention to stay just in one part of the breath, either the tip of the nose, but feeling the sensations of the air that enters the nostrils, and feeling the air on the upper lip as you exhale. Or you might focus at the belly or the chest, the movement. You could do a simple noting practice, breathing in. I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out. Body breathing out. Or simply in and out. So gently but surely, we return the attention to the body breathing or the breath in the body. Relinquishing again and again our interest in the contents of thought. Notice any spaciousness, so any gaps between the thoughts, any sense of spaciousness in the body or around the body. And giving that space your attention, like the silence between musical notes. And maybe there's a sense of opening or expanding this quietness, the stillness, the gaps between sensations and between thought. And we make room for it. Instead of pushing it out, we expand, diminishing the effects. In the same way that if you add a teaspoon of salt to a cup of water, it will taste salty. But if you add a teaspoon of salt to the lake, there'll be no flavor of salt. So we expand the spaciousness, the sense of quiet, silence, stillness. So that thoughts are less and less perceptible, less and less of interest. And especially if it's useful, taking on a sense that you are a natural being, sitting in nature, just like the Buddha under the tree, or you could imagine a fox in the forest, resting. Animals, if you have pets, they know how to rest. They lay down and rest. And here we're resting. And the point of me suggesting this is so that you can let go of any sense that you're trying to accomplish something. You're trying to do something. We're resting in the body breathing, But instead of going to sleep as we would when we otherwise rest, allow the mind to brighten, the alertness to sharpen. We become curious about sensations, sounds, and this quality of stillness. Like the Buddha or a fox in the forest, we are not cutting ourselves off from what's around us. We're sensing not just the body sitting and breathing, but the space around us. We hear. If somebody walked up beside us, we wouldn't be startled. We would hear them coming. We rest, enjoying simply resting. Except if there isn't an enjoyment to it, you notice that. Notice the impulse, the urge, for things to be different, for the meditation to be over, for the body to be more comfortable. Yeah, creating space around whatever those impulses and urges are, those impressions. Again, to dilute their power over us. We allow them to appear and dissolve. We can observe this. Observe the mind craving, clinging, eventually subsiding. It either subsides and we become restful, enjoying rest, or some other agitation appears to captivate us. Find what is pleasurable in the experience of resting in the breath and lean in. Continuing to rest in this stillness, maintaining that meditative state. I'll read to you a little about ethical discipline when the mind is quiet like this, receiving the Dharma, receiving instructions, deep into the heart. So composure, ethical self-discipline, restraint, self-control is developed on the path of awakening in order to bring calm and quiet to the heart and mind and reduce the harm that we cause ourselves and others. If our mind is not trained but remains turbulent, stirred up by drama, pulled this way, pushed that way, then we're unable to see clearly. So self-restraint, self-control, self-discipline is not to be confused with suppression of thoughts or feelings. We do not dissociate. Instead, it's that training and capacity for allowing the feelings, that space we create around the experiences. Allowing the fullness of thoughts and feelings and sensations, which allows us to recognize the power they hold over us. So we create space, we identify with the stillness and the turbulence of the mind. Our reactivity diminishes. Because our mind is calmer, we can be more skillful with the thoughts we do engage with. In terms of the first three far-reaching attitudes, it's a natural progression. That first one, we are determined to make some headway to peace, to inner peace. And the second, loving kindness, we begin to create internal conditions that are supportive of us relaxing, of us being comfortable, feeling whole. The third far-reaching attitude, truthfulness. We become honest in that space of determination and loving kindness. Our capacity for honesty increases, can get a little more real. So we're not threatened. We have that basis of loving kindness. And then here, that ethical discipline, ethical self-discipline that we're going to look at tonight is an extension of this movement towards truthfulness. We see the connection between our reactivity and the suffering in our life, the way we cause ourselves and others harm through reactivity. And we develop the wish to be more skillful. This is this ethical self-discipline. So sitting just another minute or two here in silence. And then if there is an urge to shift, to adjust the body, you could rouse yourself and change positions. If you're quite comfortable, if you're enjoying the physical stillness, if that's supportive, then remaining there. So determination, loving kindness, truthfulness, and now ethical self-discipline. I don't know if you got a sense of it in the way that I recapped those attitudes as a kind of a natural progression. As we come to self-discipline, it really is only going to get any traction if we're happy to do it. You know, if self-discipline feels like, oh, I have to stop behaving badly, I have to stop this bad habit or that bad habit, then we're going to resist it. Whereas if we come to it through this progression of understanding cause and effect, cultivating a loving kindness and allowance in the heart, and a beginning to look at how truthful we are, you know, how honest we are with ourselves, it kind of coalesces on its own into this understanding that actually my untrained mind and my reactivity, or my allowing myself to just be sort of pulled and pushed by impulses, is what's causing the suffering. That's what's agitating the mind. And it's a shift from an external view to an internal view. You know, it's a really fundamental shift from the problems out there somewhere, the problems in, you know, my living situation or my work or the government or this person who's criticizing or harming me, you know, the crazy drivers out there on the road. That's the problem. If they would all just fall in line, then I could be happy. You know, then I would have no problems. And it's just misguided. You know, the agitation's not coming from somewhere else. The agitation's not coming from the conditions you experience. It's coming from your relationship to them or your reactivity to them. So if we're kind of swept away by reactivity, like in a chain all day long, chasing comfort and trying to get away from discomfort, we won't see this. We won't see, oh, I'm actually involved here in making myself unhappy and making myself uncomfortable? You know, allowing my mind to fall into patterns that are going to lead to more harm. You know, and it's either a kind of laziness or sloppiness, like we know better but we do it anyway, or it's just a matter that we haven't seen clearly the connection between our actions, our thoughts, and our speech and our behaviors, and the results, the suffering that's coming as a result of it. You know, we're confused about it. So last week, when we talked about truthfulness, we got into ethical self-discipline already by talking about the gate of speech, about truthfulness with respect to what we say, you know, and how we speak. You know, so the tendency we have to be dishonest with ourselves or with others. Like, if I don't tell them, then it can't hurt, you know, or we might, you know, mask our feelings. And then there's sort of a general confusion because we haven't told people what we really think or feel. And so they're dealing with, they don't know what, you know, and that is clouding things. We might be distracting ourselves with gossip. You know, we might be overly involved in somebody else's business and talking about them, thinking about them. So speech carries through into self-discipline as a major place where we can investigate the causes that we're creating. But it opens to a little bit more as well. So we're going to look at that from the book. We'll start at the beginning of the chapter on ethical self-discipline here on page 56. So ethical conduct. So synonyms for ethical self-discipline: ethical conduct, morality, virtue, character, habit. The characteristic of ethical self-discipline, meaning what it looks like, what its character is composure. So composure, you know what that is? Like calm and composed. Think of a dancer, composure. There's a physical presence there. So the mind is starting to stabilize or compose itself around a lack of disturbance, right? It's not agitated. If you think of composure, it's not scattered, it's brought together and settling, yeah? So ethical self-discipline functions to create blameless conduct and develops into impeccability, excellence, and trustworthiness. It arises from the wish to stop causing harm to ourselves and others and our environment. Yeah. Good. So let's skip now to the back of the chapter. We might go back into the middle as well, because there's precepts involved. Precepts means guidelines for our actions. And there's 5 traditional precepts that we can consider taking on board, that we can investigate, not from the point of view of these are rules that I have to follow or I'm a bad person, but rather rules that we can set in place for ourselves around what we say and do and think. And then we notice how close we are to that boundary, you know, how difficult is it for us to not lie or not gossip, right? So it's not a standard that we're setting and we have to live up to that, and then we're going to be a good person or an enlightened being. It's a standard that we set so that we can observe the mind's reactivity and the mind's movement, the mind's turbulence around what we're thinking and feeling, saying and doing. Yeah. So there's five for a lay Buddhist, there's 5 precepts that are taken and held as standard for conduct. So those are what are to be abandoned. Yeah, things you don't do. Don't do these things anymore, and you're going to increase the causes for peacefulness in the heart and mind. But then the other presentation that is here is what is to be practiced. So this is from Thich Nhat Hanh. From what he did with those precepts is he said, maybe it's not enough to just not do the things that are causing harm, but to actually cultivate kind of the counter activities, the goodness on the other side of those actions that we're abandoning. So the first precept, the first thing to abandon is harming others. So it's in the way I've put it in the book is I undertake to refrain from destroying living creatures. Yeah. The shortest form of this is no killing. Yeah, no killing. No. And more widely, no harming, right? No physical harm, no harming others with our speech, no setting out with the intention to bring harm to another living being or to ourselves. Yeah. So what is to be abandoned? I undertake to refrain from destroying living creatures. What is to be practiced? I undertake to protect life, to decrease violence in myself, in my family, and in my society. Yeah, so we actually don't just stop harming ourselves and others, but actually look to create peace, to create or to decrease violence, I guess is the way it's put. So this is one place that we can look at this is with our anger. This one is anger as a response to hatred or aversion. It's easy for us to see other people's anger and to see how that kind of other people's anger is causing problems. We look around, especially post-pandemic, and we see all the tightly wound energy and the increase over the last few decades in road rage, and people are impatient and people are selfish and they're trying to get the best and they're cutting off in traffic and they're butting in line, and we can see how other people's anger and impatience plays out. But what we tend to do is not look at our own. And that's where the precepts and where the path really bears fruit. Is to take care of what's happening here, our anger. Yeah, so, and to go back to the preceding attitudes, in order to look at our anger, we have to be comfortable to do it. We have to feel safe enough to do it. We have to have permission to do it. So it's really important with the practice of self-discipline that we don't just deny that we're angry. Like, oh, I meditate now, and I know that what's going to bring happiness is peace, so I no longer get angry. Like, no, I'm not doing it. There's a bypass there where we intellectually know that anger is harmful, but instead we're suppressing it. Or we might have been conditioned, maybe, growing up, it wasn't safe for us to express our anger. And so we don't know how to. We've always put a lid on it. We've always pressed it down. But it's that turning towards it, allowing it to come up and working with it so that it's expressed, but it's expressed in that spaciousness that we're creating in our meditation, for example. So we become a large enough container for like the bomb of anger to go off within us, but it doesn't destroy us. You know, there's room there, you know? And until we're willing to do this work, either on the cushion, well, let's not say either, let's say both on the cushion and in our daily life, until we're willing to turn towards our own hatred, our own aversion, it's going to keep tripping us up. It's going to keep coming back, you know, and it's going to make it impossible for us to make progress. To make it, you know, maybe more practical and maybe more lighthearted here, or like to give you an example from daily life, you could look at the, you know, our instinct to kill insects, to kill spiders, to kill flies, to kill those really creepy silverfish that, you know, we have a physical response, a limbic response to these creepy crawly creatures. Get the shoe, you know? So this is an aversion. This is a hatred. I hate this creature. It can't be here. It needs to not be alive anymore. You know? And so we take the precept, I'm not going to kill. I'm going to take the little bug. I'm going to get a cup and I'm going to capture it and take it outside. But we don't do that just like, well, that's what a peaceful person does. That's what a Buddhist does. You know, I know how a Buddhist behaves. They don't kill bugs. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that, but you need to go deeper than that. You need to feel the aversion, feel the distaste, feel the wish to kill, the wish to end life, the wish to harm that is inherent in the activity of killing. And it, like I said before, it's either a laziness or you haven't considered that that's a living being that has just as much of a wish to continue living as you do. So it's kind of a thoughtlessness, or there's some maliciousness in it, or some pleasure in it even. So that's a simple everyday example of where you can watch your mind's reactivity and your actions, and you undertake that. I'm not going to harm anymore. You have to find your way to that. Compassion, that's a living being, just like me. Yeah, your heart softens. Same thing with, you know, you don't take your shoe out and swat the raging driver on the highway, but you have that reaction, that impulse that would lead to that if you were big enough and had a big enough shoe, you know, because we feel threatened and we want to stop that. You need to stop that. Yeah, that's the impulse. You stop, right? So you come to see how painful it is to feel that aversion, that hatred, and to have that impulse to harm. So the second, what is to be abandoned, I undertake to refrain from taking that which is not freely offered or freely given. So the short form of this precept is no stealing. You don't take what isn't given to you. Yeah. So again, this is an edge we can investigate. Generally, we're probably not shoplifting. Those of us in attendance tonight, I very much doubt that any of you shoplifted today. But in what ways do we steal? What things do we steal? Oh, maybe a few office supplies at work, a couple of pencils come home. Yeah. Or, the cashier forgets to beep the steak on the way out the door, or the bag of chips, and you're like, whoo, I just got free chips. Yeah. Yeah. Are they actually, is that a kind of stealing? What are you trying to take? And you're looking at that movement of trying to get something that wasn't given. And what you want to see is that it's painful to feel that you need that movement towards clinging is painful. So I'm going to refrain from it. What is to be practiced on the other side of this precept, I undertake to engage in social justice and generosity. So I look for opportunities to give. Yeah, this is a wonderful, generosity is its own far-reaching attitude. So we'll get into that one for a full 10-day period, but looking instead for what can I get, and switching that around to what can I give, just playing with that practice, and again, feeling it. It has a quality that is different. The quality of taking what is not given has a scarcity to it. It has fear, right? It has grasping and clinging. The quality of giving, of offering, of looking for opportunities to give away has the opposite. It has this opening, it has this lightness, it has a spaciousness, freedom, release. Yeah, joy even. The third thing to be abandoned, I undertake from harming myself and others with my sexuality. Yeah, so this, again, we might, it might be related to craving. We develop feelings for somebody else's partner. Somebody else that's in a committed relationship, and we're crushing on them and desiring them, and maybe even thinking, how can I get close to them? Yeah, we might even go further. We might, break the bonds of commitment that are established. This is harmful behavior. Yeah, it's harming us. It's harming the other people that are involved in relationships. So this is not, it has to do with consent. It has to do with not breaking commitments and not hurting other people with our sexual urge. On the other side of that precept, what is to be practiced? I undertake to behave responsibly with my sexuality in order to protect others, including committed couples, families, and children. Yeah. The fourth precept, I undertake to refrain from lying, gossiping, harsh, and harmful speech. Instead, what I will practice is to listen deeply, speak kindly, truthfully, and at the right time. And the fifth one, what is to be abandoned? I undertake to refrain from intoxicants that lead to carelessness. So getting mindlessly inebriated with alcohol and drugs. Instead, what I will practice is moderate and mindful consumption. So whether we focus on abandoning what is not skillful or cultivating what is skillful, the use of the phrase "I undertake to" reminds us that we're practicing. Yeah, so I said that at the beginning before getting into these precepts, is that it's not about thou shalt not kill. If you kill, you will, be condemned. It's that the movement of killing has within it the intention to harm, which is the suffering, which is the hell. So it's not, it's a really key point, especially to not put on ourselves some kind of trip, like, oh, I'm not good enough. Like I committed these sins. I did these things that are, harmful. Yeah, so I'm done for. Like I'm irredeemable. Right? We need to find the understanding that this is like we're in an interconnected web with others. And just the same way that we see ourselves become reactive and we see others become reactive, it's like a big knotty mess that we're in. Knotty as in Knotty, although you could say naughty, Naughty. So a really good example or good analogy that's used as a story, not a metaphor or whatever, is a bush that has thorns on it, like a bramble, right? You know what brambles are? The rabbits can go in there and be protected because bigger animals can't go in. They'll get tangled up and caught on the thorns. So it's like we're with an untrained mind, without an understanding of karma, cause and effect, and our when we're not clear on that, it's like we're in one of those brambles, like in a thorn bush, and every action we take that is just reactive is getting us more caught. We're caught, and everything we do is causing pain to ourselves. It's causing us to get further tangled up. Yeah. So everybody else is in that same position, and we want to recognize that and kind of just stop. Create that space where we see our entanglement. And you could, if you had a strong enough sense of it, you might do something like, okay, I'm going to run away to a monastery. I'm going to stop all my activities that are worldly, and I am going to sit like the Buddha did under the tree until I see clearly enough that I don't harm anymore. But probably, even if we did that, we would just be doing that big bypass. You go do that for a few months or a few years, you get really quiet, you come back, and then you're right back into the reactivity because you've just removed the stimulus. So to practice in the context of your daily life, with that daily meditation that's giving you a taste of the spacious and stillness, and then you see how you're caught during the day. You see how your activity and reactivity plays out. And you just return again to that wish, I want to be free. I don't want to cause harm anymore. This is where it's a natural, as we settle in with loving kindness and honesty, we stop behaving badly because we see what it causes. Does that make sense? Yeah. I'd like to open it up to comments and questions. If there are some.